see both kinds of people.
We've talked about this, I remember the last time, and we're in agreement in that what we know and have come to love as the pot culture really has no place for these kind of centers, that we want them to be and look like a doctor's office or something close to it. We want the people to act and dress like they're facilitating the care and services for a patient, not something else. And
yeah, how serious are you taking this? And I've seen some, like the Ulm in Ann Arbor, that I was very impressed by. But it wasn't what I would picture as a doctor's office, but it was very, I thought, professional and unique. And I thought they were really doing a good job and taking what they were doing very seriously. But then I've seen others that I liked that look like clinics. They look like doctors' offices, and they, had the same level of seriousness. We're looking at this as medical, as treatment, as taking care of people. The ones I didn't like, I just really saw that as maybe recreational users or trying to help recreational users use medical marijuana law really just to enable them for recreational use.
Let me ask you this. The question of being as a caregiver right now that exists and not really having any direction of where to go with any overages, and we're not even asking questions about that, do you see this now as a business for that person, someone that is a caregiver for one patient? Let's say they're a caregiver for one patient. Do you see this as being an incentive to become a caregiver for maybe 4 patients, having overages, and having an incentive to do that? Or what's more is, do you think people in Nashville at any point in time when their teenager asks them what they may want to do when they get older, what kind of business they may want to go into, and the recommendation will actually be you should maybe consider being a caregiver, you're a good gardener? Do you think things like that will happen?
Well, that could. And from my understanding, in discussions I've had, maybe a caregiver, I was talking to Chad. Is Chad there?
I am, actually.
Yeah, Chad said something I thought, no, was it Chad or I got a visit from Gersh? Can't remember which one he was saying, but a caregiver is almost like a dichotomy. Some people are good at growing, and some people are good at kind of taking care of people. And it's hard to, who was saying that it's hard to find? That was you?
So it certainly sounds like something that I might say, yes.
That was Chad.
Yeah, I'm not sure Chad was saying it. And so, yeah, maybe eventually you'll see a division of the caregiver into 2 things, the grower and then the actual caregiver, who may not be good at growing, and the grower may not be good at caregiving. I personally don't have a problem with there being a profit aspect in taking care of people. I am a chiropractor, and I saw patients tonight till 9, and I make a profit. It pays for my office. It pays for me to live. Right. So I really don't have a problem with a profit aspect where, let's say if you break even on your patients, you're not making money on your patients, then maybe, and that's a good thing you're doing. You're taking care of people, and the overage, the sale of the overage is an opportunity, to keep this financially viable.
I want to say something. I'm Jamie Fricky. We haven't met formally, but I'm an advocate for medical marijuana. And something I find exciting about this bill is that if you're good at being a secretary, there's an opportunity for you. If you're good at caring for somebody, there's a lot of job opportunities. And the state of Michigan is going to be pulling in taxes on income taxes as well, not just profit taxes off of the businesses.
Oh, yeah, and the employees. I didn't think of that. Yeah. Boy, I didn't think of that. But, yeah, so the state, does kind of...
Tutorial services, even.
Yeah. So, but it's not like the state, like in cigarettes, has a big old tax on cigarettes, but cigarettes aren't medicine.
Right.
Even though they both burn.
But it's going to legitimately create a lot of new business, a lot of new employment.
Well, I think, okay, I'm reading, and I hate to bring up these images, but I'm reading CNN this week, and, in a border town, there's 9 people hanging from a bridge and a bunch of beheaded people by these drug cartels. And I'm thinking, we fuel that. Illegal drug activity fuels that.
Yep.
And if, at least with people who are patients, if we can, create something,
Take a bite out of the
eliminate that crime, and then all that money that they were making, it's local. It's grown locally. The grower makes money. The caregiver makes money. It goes to the provisionary center, and they make money, and their employees make money. And yeah, it creates its own economy.
It is so nice to hear a voice of reason. Seriously, coming from the not that your brethren and sisters aren't, but it's nice to hear that this is being spoken about. Here's a concern that I have from a attorney representing patients and whatnot. How are we going to stop? Let's say we're calling it the Hazel Park test. Hazel Park is a community in Oakland County that we believe. And when the law first passed, and we've had on our show Andy LaCuro, he's a Hazel Park city council person, one of them, and he was very enthusiastic about inviting people into the community. They had a lot of buildings that they wanted to rent and lease, embracing it, and their community would be all in favor of it. But Oakland County, the county, is completely against it. They've got their narcotics task force that would raid in a second. How are we going to get around that? There's always these multi-jurisdictional task force that move from county to county. They've got some state. What about them?
Here's an issue. Okay, your issue right now is dispensaries are not legal, and right now, if you have a dispensary that is functioning completely as a dispensary, you're functioning at the pleasure of your sheriff and prosecutor. I know as soon as we got some court clarification, that's when someone I know was arrested and they were closed down. But then I see other places that I visited where their sheriff doesn't have, and their prosecutor don't seem to be that concerned, and these things do function. Now, if we make this where there is a legal way to do it, then your locals, can't raid you. Even though I realize it's federally illegal, you can't have a state police officer come and enforce a federal issue, or a local police officer saying this is illegal federally.
Well, what about the county? Because let's say that there is a way. Like sometimes they say the medical cannabis community is, looking for loopholes. Sometimes law enforcement is looking for loopholes also. And the question is, could we consider some kind of remedies? Like civil remedies. Is that something that's ever contemplated so you can really put? And I know, and I'm not trying to badmouth law enforcement. This is not a bash on them, okay? But you're always going to find, there's going to be some law enforcement agents at some level that may not accept it, despite the fact, they may try to enforce federal law. They may try to enforce, they know they're going to be, if it's a city law.
Yeah.
The county prosecutor could still. It's going to be a legal battle. Of course, you're going to get up in the courts, but I wonder if there isn't some kind of, built-in, liquidated damages kind of thing, or
You can predict that the battle will occur.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't. We wrote this, and we know there'll probably be some challenges, but didn't really build anything into it, to remedy the challenges. I hope the law works. And I realize, I come at this kind of differently than a lot of other people. A lot of people look at this as a law enforcement issue. They look at this as a legal issue. Maybe it's an ideological issue. But, being a healthcare provider as a chiropractor, I see this as a health policy issue. What is good health policy?
Good.
And how can we make this work for patients who benefit from medical marijuana?
Let me give you an example, though, of something I foresee. Some place heard this show tonight. They heard you talk about what your intentions are. They know that a place to look like is Ohm from Ann Arbor. They go out and they get some investors. They get a lot of money together, and they go into some local town, and they set up their business. They invest a lot of money. They hire a lot of employees. They get their payroll going. They got all kinds of money down to investors, and whammo, in comes the county sheriffs and takes it all down. And now they're fighting a case in court with forfeiture and whatnot, and they got to go. That is that's a possibility. I'm just saying there's going to be a test or two. It would be nice if there was, and that would also, I think, that's another statement from the I know this is me dreaming. I'm sorry. This is probably never going to. But yeah, the idea that there's some, remedy or some punishment for violations. It's not that like one of the things that we've been told as a community that there is this remedy for violations of officers that access the registry and use that information. What bill is that? That's the
4834.
4834. The access to the registry. There's a remedy that's built into that. Albeit it may be difficult to enforce. But I mean, is that something? I mean, I wonder if that was something that would help really implement the intent of what you're trying to do.
Remedy, because I can see your problem of overlapping jurisdictions, where let's say I live in the village of Nashville, and let's say the village of Nashville decides that they want something like this, that it's right for the village, but maybe the sheriff of the county does not agree, and so you have, in a sense, overlapping jurisdictions where the village wants it, but the county doesn't, or the county sheriff doesn't want it. And I'm glad you brought that up. I'm going to talk to them, because I know I'm going to write some amendments. We're going to write some amendments, because people have already brought up some issues with me. This sucker, or this, I shouldn't call it sucker, but this thing that I've written, this bill, is not in stone. It's dynamic right now. It's the result of a lot of input, and every time I've talked to someone, it changes. And, yes.
It's a great starting point, I must say, and I really give you a lot of credit, because I know you spent a lot of time talking to a lot of different people and taking a lot of different things there, and even your open-mindedness for more discussion is just phenomenal to me. Jamie wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, Representative Call, I believe that the way the bill is now would handle the issue that you're talking about. Certainly it might be challenged, but they would just be deciding to do that and being aggressive and challenge it. But the way the bill is, once the local government accepts one of these places and provides for it and gets it in place, it's then recognized on a statewide level. So even the county sheriffs wouldn't have overlapping jurisdiction on the entities.
That's a good point. That's interesting. Yeah.
It was ruled that way.
Well, I'm not. I've seen some. I mean, I'm not arguing with my dear friend Jamie over here, but I have seen the courts twist things despite the intent thus far. I mean, we all
I'm not
know.
disputing that at all.
We all knew there was supposed to be an absolute, God-given right to present a defense to any marijuana charges. So says the most clear of all the ballot language, and yet here we are, 4 years into it, hoping that the Senate will pass the bill allowing people to have the most basic American right to present a defense to their charges. But I just say any other protections that can be had there that signify a protections and some remedies. Somebody asked a question on our forums, which kind of draws back to the not taking a tax on the sale. And that was some of the concerns that, the money that would be had is not going to be taxed at the state level, but can actually be used at the local level. Is that right? There's nothing to say where the money is going to be charted or tracked, per se.
Local could tax it, and my guess is it wouldn't be on the sale. There would maybe be a tax on having one, maybe a yearly tax. Because the tax just can't charge a tax to make a profit. The tax has to cover their cost for something, oversight, testing, whatever they decide to do.
Sure.
Inspection fees.
Yeah, so it could just be a yearly tax on having it there. But it has to cover something. It has to be for something, some kind of service, whether it's the police have to come there and inspect it every so often, or whether you have decided that you want testing and to pay for the testing. It has to be something.
But yeah, the concern was that if you start putting taxes into it, it raises the prices, and then the money's coming out from the sale, and it's going to state. That's not the intent of all this. With the money that is made, there'll be a tax, of course, or some kind of cost of doing business that will be paid to the local community. That's what the intent is, and that whatever comes thereafter, like any other business, as well as they do, the more profit that they make, the more employees they'll hire, the more they'll be able to expand their business. That was the concern. People wanted to know if there was where the money was going to go. Was it going to stay at the local level, or
If the state makes any money, it will be on business profit taxes and what was brought up is payroll taxes.
And what we're really looking at is no taxing for any per transaction issues. That's certainly not in any of the programs.
Well, that's not what you don't know what the local is going to decide. It seemed like that would be hard to keep track of. I used to be on village council, and if I had to look at this kind of issue, okay, we got this. We're going to have to spend a little extra, maybe police time. How much will that cost? We do want them to testing because we have some health concerns. How much will that cost? And then I think the simplest thing to do, because they want to keep it simple too, is to just give a yearly tax based on what they think will be the probable cost. Let's say if they think the probable cost of this oversight could be $10,000 a year, then just charge that as a tax of doing business for that year.
Essentially a charge up front on that.
That's what I would, to me that seems the simplest, because it just seems like to tax each sale, I'm just thinking of the nightmare of trying to keep track of that.
Exactly right, but that's what the
any municipality would decide to regulate this that way. It seems very, very heavyweight at this point in time.
Yeah.
That extra $10,000 is hard to come up with these days.
You know,
that's just a number. That's just a number that's floating around. It's not solid.
Yeah.
Right. That would be each individual municipality would decide how they would structure the fees if there were any fees associated, whether it was inspections or whether they were not needed. Those are all allowable under the 5580.
Well, this exists in Ypsilanti, and they did charge us $2,500 for a first year, and then a renewal fee, I believe, of $1,500 or $1,000.
Great way for that to contribute to the community coffers, right?
And they come in and inspect us.
one of the nice things about the bill I found was that the concept of a local option is probably the most purest of democratic ways for implementation. You're going to have some communities right now that exist that are going to immediately embrace it. You're going to have some that are going to reject it, and those that reject it, it then becomes a local vote. You gather your community together and you rally your troops and you vote out the people that have voted it away or not, if you want it or don't want it. It really leaves it to the community. And there's probably going to be some communities that are more inclined because of, economic status, whatever the case may be. There's probably thousands of reasons. But that was one of the intents of that, I imagine.
Yeah, well, like the Ulm in Ann Arbor, I think, is accepted by the community. It's perfect for that community. But the Ulm in Ann Arbor would probably not be perfect in my town of Nashville that I live. It's a lot different community, much more conservative, different, kind of people. We're rural instead of suburban, and would probably not embrace such a model. Actually, may embrace a more professional, or I shouldn't say they're very professional, but more of a doctor's office professional type model might be something that would fit better in Nashville.
But it's appropriate to stress the fact that every community would allow the local flavor to take place, that they would allow themselves to customize their comfort level with that particular aspect of it, and that way there's no uniformity across the state, but yet each individual community has their own desires honored for a change.
Yeah, I think so. And then also they have, some control over signage.
Right.
Like what I saw in Lansing that I really thought was terrible was a big neon marijuana leaf in the window. Mm-hmm. And, I thought, that it's not, that's not good for, the image that you want to present as professional, as medicine. And that was just, it almost seemed like something from Cheech and Chong.
Right.
So it gives ability, to control signage, to have, professional signage.